Dr. Maya Johnson knelt beside a strange blue plant that glowed in the dim light of Kepler 442b's twin suns. She had been studying alien life forms on this distant planet for 3 months now. Her small research camp sat in a clearing surrounded by massive trees that reached toward the purple sky. The air smelled like metal and flowers mixed together. Maya loved her work, but she missed her husband Jake terribly. She carefully took samples from the glowing plant and put them in special containers. Her scanner beeped as it recorded data about the plant's DNA. This discovery could help humans grow food on other planets. Maya smiled as she thought about calling Jake tonight to tell him about her findings. He always listened to her science talk even though he was a soldier and probably found it boring. The forest around her was quiet except for the sound of wind through the alien trees. Maya had learned to recognize the normal sounds of this world. That's why she noticed when everything went silent. Even the small flying creatures that buzzed around the flowers stopped making noise. Something was wrong. Maya stood up slowly and looked around. Her training had taught her to trust her instincts. She reached for the communication device on her belt. Before she could grab it, she heard voices coming from the trees behind her. "There she is," a rough voice said. "Just like the boss said she'd be." 3 men stepped out from behind the massive tree trunks. They wore dirty clothes and carried weapons that looked old but dangerous. Maya recognized them as the type of criminals who preyed on frontier colonies. Her heart started beating faster, but she kept her face calm. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" Maya said in her most professional voice. The leader of the group was a tall man with scars on his face and arms covered in tattoos. He smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "You can help us a lot, Lady Doctor. My name is Vincent Cruz and these are my business partners." Maya noticed more men moving through the trees around her camp. They had surrounded her while she was focused on her work. She counted at least 8 of them. Her hand moved slowly toward her emergency beacon. "I don't have any money if that's what you want," Maya said. "I'm just a scientist studying plants." Vincent laughed. "Money? Lady, you're worth more than money. You know all about the valuable stuff on this planet. The rare minerals, the useful plants, the good spots to set up operations. That brain of yours is going to make us rich." One of the other men, a short guy with mean eyes, pointed his weapon at Maya. "Boss says we should just grab her and go." "Patience, Rico," Vincent said. "The good doctor here is going to cooperate with us. Aren't you, Doctor?" Maya knew she had to try something. These men clearly planned to kidnap her and force her to help them steal from the planet. She also knew that Jake had taught her never to go to a second location with criminals. "Better to fight where you are," he always said. Maya suddenly dove toward her equipment table. Her fingers found the emergency beacon, and she pressed the special sequence Jake had taught her. The device would send a coded message to him with her location. Vincent's men were fast, though. Rico grabbed her arm and yanked her away from the equipment. "She's sending a message," Rico shouted. Vincent's face turned angry. "Smash all that equipment now." The criminals began destroying Maya's research station. They stomped on her computers and threw her samples into the dirt. Months of work disappeared in minutes. Maya felt sick watching them destroy everything, but she was glad she had sent the message to Jake. "That was very stupid, Doctor," Vincent said, as his men finished wrecking her camp. "Now we have to move faster than I wanted." 2 more gang members appeared, dragging heavy rope and metal chains. Maya realized they planned to tie her up. She decided to fight even though she was outnumbered. Jake had taught her some basic combat moves during their time together. When Rico reached for her again, Maya twisted away and kicked him hard in the knee. He went down cursing. She tried to run toward the tree line, but another gang member tackled her from behind. Maya hit the ground hard but kept fighting. She managed to scratch one man's face and punch another in the stomach before they overpowered her. "This one's got some fight in her," one of the men said while breathing hard. "Good," Vincent replied. "That means she won't give up easy when we put her to work, but we need to make sure she doesn't cause us more trouble." They dragged Maya to one of the massive alien trees at the edge of the clearing. The tree's bark was smooth and dark purple. Strange vines hung down from its branches. Vincent's men wrapped rope around Maya's wrists and tied her to the thick trunk. The rope was tight enough to hold her, but not tight enough to cut off blood flow. They knew they needed her alive and healthy. "Here's how this works, Doctor," Vincent said as he stood in front of her. "You're going to tell us everything you know about this planet, where to find the good stuff, which plants are valuable, where the mineral deposits are hidden. If you cooperate, we'll treat you nice. If you don't cooperate, things will get unpleasant." Maya stared at him without speaking. She was scared but also angry. These criminals had destroyed her work and were threatening the planet's ecosystem. She thought about Jake and wondered if her message had reached him. He was stationed so far away on Europa. Even if he got the message, how could he possibly help her from there? "The silent treatment, huh?" Vincent said. "That's okay. You'll talk eventually. They always do." He turned to his men. "Set up camp here for the night. Post guards and keep an eye on our valuable guest. Tomorrow we start showing the doctor how serious we are about our business arrangement." As the criminals began setting up their temporary camp around her, Maya looked up at the alien sky. The twin suns were setting and strange stars were beginning to appear. She had sent her message to Jake using the special code he taught her. Now all she could do was hope he received it and pray he could find a way to help her. The rope around her wrists was strong, but Maya was stronger. She had survived years of dangerous fieldwork on frontier planets. She would find a way to survive this too. She just had to stay alive long enough for help to arrive. If help was coming at all. Master Sergeant Jake Washington was cleaning his rifle in the barracks on Europa when his personal communicator started flashing red. The red light meant emergency message from family. Jake's heart skipped a beat as he dropped his cleaning kit and grabbed the device. The message was short and encoded in the special system he had taught Maya years ago. Most people would see random numbers and letters, but Jake understood every character. The coordinates showed Maya's research location on Kepler 442b. The timestamp was only 6 hours old. Then came the single word that made Jake's blood turn cold. Serpent. Jake had taught Maya that code word to use if she was ever taken by criminals. She was supposed to add it to any distress signal if bad people had captured her. The word told him she was alive when she sent the message, but in serious danger. It also told him she had limited time to send the signal before her captors stopped her. Jake's hands shook as he read the message again. His wife was in trouble on a planet that was 3 days' travel from Europa, even with the fastest ships. The Terran Defense Force had protocols for rescuing civilians, but they took time. Forms to fill out, approval from command, mission planning meetings that could take weeks. Maya might not have weeks or even days. He looked around the empty barracks. His unit was on shore leave and most of the guys were in the recreation areas or sleeping. Jake's mind started working like it did during combat missions. He needed to think fast and act faster. Maya's life depended on what he did in the next few hours. Jake pulled up star charts on his personal computer. Kepler 442b was in a frontier sector known for criminal activity. The planet had valuable resources but limited law enforcement. Perfect hunting ground for gangs like the Crimson Serpents that Maya's message had referenced. Jake knew about that particular gang from intelligence briefings. They were bad news, specialists in kidnapping and extortion. The smart thing would be to report Maya's situation to his commanding officer and let the military handle it through proper channels. Jake had always been a by-the-book soldier who followed orders and respected the chain of command. But this was different. This was Maya, the woman he loved more than his own life. The woman who had waited for him through 5 combat deployments and never complained about the dangers of military life. Jake's communication device buzzed with an incoming call. He almost ignored it until he saw the caller identification. Carlos Rivera, his old teammate from Delta Force operations. Carlos was stationed on Mars now, but they still talked regularly. "Jake, my friend, how are you doing?" Carlos said when Jake answered. "Carlos, I need your help," Jake said without any small talk. "Maya's in trouble." The line went quiet for a moment. Carlos had met Maya several times and knew how much she meant to Jake. "What kind of trouble?" Jake explained about the distress signal and the coded message. He could hear Carlos moving around on the other end of the call, probably getting ready for action. That was Carlos, always ready to help a brother in arms. "That's a long way from anywhere," Carlos said after Jake finished explaining. "What's The official response time for a rescue mission to that sector? 2 weeks minimum, Jake replied. Maybe longer if command decides she's not a priority target. 2 weeks, Carlos repeated. Maya doesn't have 2 weeks with those animals. Jake felt relief wash over him. Carlos understood the situation without needing more explanation. I'm thinking about going after her myself. Unofficial rescue mission. Count me in, Carlos said. Immediately. When do we leave? Carlos, if we do this, we're risking our careers. Court-martial, prison time, the whole deal. Command won't approve an unauthorized mission to frontier space. Carlos laughed, but there was no humor in it. Jake, you pulled me out of that mess in Afghanistan when everyone else gave me up for dead. You think I'm going to let your wife rot in some criminal camp because of paperwork? Besides, Maya makes the best coffee in the solar system. We can't lose her. Jake smiled for the first time since receiving Maya's message. I need to contact Liu and Tony too. If we're doing this, we need the whole team. Already thinking ahead, Carlos said. Liu's on the asteroid mining stations and Tony's on deep space patrol. Both of them owe you favors from the old days. Jake was already pulling up contact information for his other former teammates. Liu Chen was a technical specialist who could handle any computer system or security device. Tony Brooks was a weapons expert and pilot who could fly anything with engines. Together, they had been the most effective special operations team in the Terran Defense Force. Give me 2 hours to reach out to the others, Jake said. If they're in, we meet at Dock 7 on the military side of Europa Station. There's a fast courier ship there that nobody's using. Jake, Carlos said, his voice getting serious. You know, we might not all come back from this. Frontier space is dangerous and we don't know how many criminals we're dealing with. Jake looked at Maya's picture on his desk. It showed her smiling in her laboratory, surrounded by alien plant samples. She looked so happy and peaceful. The thought of her tied up somewhere, scared and alone, made his chest hurt. Maya would do the same for any of us, Jake said. She's family. Damn right she is, Carlos replied. I'll start packing gear and see you in 2 hours. After Carlos ended the call, Jake immediately contacted Liu Chen. The conversation was short and to the point. Liu didn't ask many questions, just wanted to know when and where to meet. Jake had saved Liu's life during a mission on Titan, and Liu had never forgotten it. Tony Brooks took longer to reach because his patrol ship was in deep space. When Jake finally got through, Tony was in the middle of a routine security sweep near Jupiter. Jake explained the situation and Tony's response was immediate. Maya's in trouble? I'm turning around right now. My patrol route can wait. Tony, your commanding officer isn't going to be happy about you abandoning your assignment. Let me worry about my CO, Tony said. Maya brings cookies to the annual military family picnic. Anyone who threatens Cookie Lady is going down. Despite everything, Jake had to smile. Tony always found a way to lighten the mood even in serious situations. It was one of the reasons their team had worked so well together during combat operations. Jake spent the next hour gathering his personal gear and writing a letter to his commanding officer. The letter explained his actions and took full responsibility for the unauthorized mission. He sealed it and left it on his bunk to be found after he was gone. As Jake walked toward the dock where he would meet his teammates, he thought about Maya's message again. She had managed to send him her location and warn him about her captors even while being attacked. She was smart and brave and resourceful. If anyone could survive being captured by criminals, it was Maya. But Jake also knew that the Crimson Serpents were dangerous people who didn't value human life. Maya's scientific knowledge made her valuable to them, which meant she would stay alive as long as she was useful. Once they got what they wanted from her, they would probably kill her to eliminate witnesses. Jake picked up his pace. Every hour that passed meant Maya was in more danger. His team would have to work fast and fight hard to get her back, but that's what they did best. Jake just hoped they weren't already too late. Jake arrived at dock 7:30 minutes early and found Carlos already there. His old teammate was loading equipment bags into a sleek courier ship that looked fast and well-armed. Carlos had somehow acquired military-grade gear without triggering any security alerts. Jake didn't ask how. Carlos had always been good at finding things they needed. Nice ship, Jake said as he climbed aboard. Where did you get it? Better if you don't know, Carlos replied with a grin. Let's just say I have friends in the motor pool who understand family emergencies. The ship's interior was designed for speed and efficiency. It had basic living quarters for 4 people and a small cargo hold filled with weapons and supplies. Jake recognized some of the equipment from their old Delta Force days. Combat armor, advanced rifles, electronic warfare gear, and medical supplies. Carlos had thought of everything. Liu Chen arrived 20 minutes later carrying a large case of computer equipment. He was a quiet man who spoke with careful precision. Jake had always trusted Liu's technical skills completely. If there were electronic locks or security systems protecting Maya, Liu would get through them. I brought some new toys, Liu said as he secured his equipment. Quantum encryption breakers, satellite hacking tools, and some experimental stuff I've been working on. If these criminals have any electronic security, it won't stop us. Tony Brooks showed up just as they were finishing the final equipment check. He looked tired from pushing his patrol ship hard to get back to Europa, but his eyes were sharp and focused. Tony was carrying his personal sniper rifle and a bag of explosive devices. Sorry I'm late, Tony said. Had to make up a story for my commanding officer about engine trouble. How much time do we have? Jake pulled up the star charts on the ship's navigation system. Maya sent her distress signal 8 hours ago. It'll take us 60 hours to reach Kepler 442b if we push this ship to maximum speed. That means we'll arrive about 3 days after she was captured. 3 days, Liu said quietly. A lot can happen in 3 days. Jake had been thinking the same thing. Maya was smart and tough, but she was also surrounded by dangerous criminals on a hostile planet. 3 days felt like forever when someone you loved was in danger. Let's talk about what we know, Jake said as the team gathered around the ship's planning table. He activated a holographic display showing Maya's last known location on Kepler 442b. Carlos pulled up intelligence files on his portable computer. The Crimson Serpents have been operating in that sector for 2 years. They specialize in kidnapping scientists and engineers to help them locate valuable resources. Most victims are never seen again. How many people are we dealing with? Tony asked. Intelligence estimates between 15 and 30 members, Carlos replied. They usually work in small groups, but they can call in reinforcements if needed. Their leader is Vincent Cruz, former military demolitions expert who went criminal after being discharged for violent behavior. Jake studied Cruz's photograph on the intelligence file. The man had cold eyes and scars that suggested he'd been in many fights. This wasn't someone who would show mercy to a captured scientist. What about their base of operations? Jake asked. Liu activated his computer and started pulling data from various sources. They move around a lot, but they always set up near valuable mineral deposits or research stations. Maya's camp was close to several rare element mining sites. That's probably why they targeted her. Jake felt anger building in his chest. Maya had been captured not for who she was, but for what she knew. These criminals saw her as a tool to help them steal from the planet. They probably didn't care about her as a person at all. Weapons and equipment, Tony said, bringing up another file. The Serpents use older military hardware, probably stolen or bought on the black market. Nothing too advanced, but still dangerous. They prefer ambush tactics and intimidation over direct combat. That works in our favor, Carlos said. They're not used to fighting trained soldiers who shoot back. Jake looked around at his teammates. These men had followed him into combat zones across the galaxy. They had saved each other's lives more times than he could count. Now they were risking their military careers to help him save Maya. He felt grateful and worried at the same time. You all understand what we're doing here, Jake said. This isn't an official mission. If we get caught, the military will deny everything. We could face court-martial, prison time, or worse. Are you sure you want to do this? Carlos answered first. Maya helped my sister get into medical school. She spent hours tutoring her in biochemistry. My family owes her. Liu nodded. Maya always remembers my birthday and sends care packages. When I'm on long assignments, she treats me like family even though we only met a few times. Tony smiled. Maya laughs at my bad jokes and makes me feel welcome at military gatherings. Plus, she makes those amazing chocolate cookies. We can't let anything happen to the cookie lady." Jake felt his throat get tight with emotion. His teammates weren't just helping him save his wife. They were saving someone they cared about too. Maya had that effect on people. She made everyone feel important and valued. "All right then," Jake said. "Let's plan this rescue." They spent the next 2 hours going over maps, satellite images, and tactical options. Liu hacked into orbital surveillance systems to get real-time information about Maya's location. Tony calculated weapon loads and explosive requirements. Carlos worked on approach routes and escape plans. Jake coordinated everything while fighting the urge to simply fly straight to Kepler 442b as fast as possible. He wanted to rush to Maya's aid, but he knew that proper planning would give them the best chance of getting her back alive. His team deserved a solid plan that would bring everyone home safely. As the ship launched from Europa and headed toward deep space, Jake sat in the pilot's chair watching the stars get brighter. Carlos took the first navigation shift while Liu and Tony checked their equipment one more time. The ship's engines hummed quietly as they accelerated toward maximum speed. Jake pulled up Maya's last message again and read it for the 100th time. The coordinates were burned into his memory now. The timestamp reminded him how much time had already passed. The code word serpent told him everything he needed to know about her captors. But there was something else in the message that gave him hope. Maya had managed to send it despite being attacked and captured. She had stayed calm under pressure and followed her training. That told Jake she wasn't giving up. She was fighting back in her own way and waiting for help to arrive. "Don't worry, Maya," Jake whispered to the stars. "We're coming for you." Carlos looked over from the navigation station. "What was that?" "Nothing," Jake said. "Just making a promise." The ship continued through space at maximum speed, carrying 4 determined soldiers toward a dangerous rescue mission. Jake knew they might not all survive what was coming. The Crimson Serpents were criminals, but they were also desperate and well-armed. The planet itself was hostile with dangerous wildlife and environmental hazards, but Jake also knew his team was the best special operations unit the Terran Defense Force had ever produced. They had completed impossible missions and survived situations that killed other soldiers. If anyone could rescue Maya and make the criminals pay for their crimes, it was these 4 men. Jake settled back in his chair and watched the stars stream past the window. Somewhere out there, Maya was waiting for rescue. She was probably scared and hurt but still alive, still fighting, still hoping that help would come. Help was coming. Jake and his brothers in arms were bringing justice to the criminals who had dared to threaten their family. The Crimson Serpents had made the biggest mistake of their criminal careers when they captured Maya Johnson. They were about to learn why nobody messed with the family of Delta Force operators. The courier ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Jake felt his stomach settle as the artificial gravity stabilized. Through the main window, he could see the distant planet where Maya was being held, prisoner. It looked like a green and purple marble floating in space. 62 hours since Maya sent her distress signal, Tony announced from the sensor station. "We made good time." Jake moved to the pilot's chair and took control of the ship. They needed to approach the planet carefully to avoid detection by the criminals or any orbital sensors. The last thing they wanted was to alert the Crimson Serpents that rescue was coming. Liu's fingers flew across his computer keyboard as he hacked into the planet's communication satellites. "I'm scanning for radio traffic and electronic signatures. If the gang is using modern equipment, I should be able to locate them." Carlos was studying topographical maps of Maya's research area. The terrain is rough. Lots of dense forest, rocky hills, and river valleys. Good places to hide, but also good places for ambushes. Jake guided the ship toward Kepler 442b using a slow approach that would look like a routine cargo delivery to any watching sensors. The planet's twin suns cast strange shadows across its surface. He could see massive storm systems swirling through the purple atmosphere. "Got something," Liu said suddenly. Radio chatter about 15 kilometers northeast of Maya's original research camp. Multiple voices, definitely human. They're using encrypted communications, but it's an old military encryption system. I can break it. Jake felt his heart rate increase. They had found the criminals. What are they saying? Liu adjusted his equipment and put the intercepted radio traffic through speakers. Static filled the air before clearing into human voices speaking in rough, casual tones. Base camp to Patrol 2, what's your status? A man's voice asked. Patrol 2 here, no sign of anyone coming to look for the scientist lady. Looks like nobody cares about her. Jake's hands tightened on the ship's controls. The criminals were talking about Maya like she was just an object. They had no idea that 4 very angry special operations soldiers were less than an hour away from their location. Keep watching the approaches, the base voice replied. Boss says we move the package. Tomorrow if nobody shows up to pay her ransom. Package. They were calling Maya a package. Jake forced himself to stay calm and focus on the mission. Getting angry wouldn't help Maya. Professional tactical thinking would save her life. I've got their location pinpointed, Liu said as he transferred coordinates to the navigation system. They're using Maya's research camp as their base, but they've expanded it with additional shelters and defensive positions. Tony was already suiting up in his combat armor. How many heat signatures are you reading? 12 active signatures at the main camp, Liu replied. But there could be more in shelters that block thermal scanning. I'm also detecting roving patrols in the surrounding area. Jake flew the ship low over the planet's surface using mountain ranges and cloud cover to hide their approach. The alien landscape below looked beautiful but dangerous. Massive trees with purple leaves reached toward the sky. Strange creatures moved through clearings between the forests. Rivers of bright blue water wound through valleys filled with glowing plants. Landing zone coming up, Carlos announced. There's a flat area about 5 kilometers south of the criminal camp. Thick forest cover should hide the ship. Jake set the ship down gently in a clearing surrounded by alien trees. The landing was so smooth that barely any dust was disturbed. Outside they could hear the strange sounds of an alien world. Bird-like creatures calling to each other, wind whistling through the massive trees and the distant rumble of thunder from approaching storms. The team spent 30 minutes checking their equipment and coordinating their approach. Each man carried advanced assault rifles, sidearms, electronic warfare gear, and enough ammunition for a sustained firefight. They also had medical supplies, rope, and cutting tools in case Maya was injured or restrained. Jake studied satellite images of the target area one more time. Maya's research camp is in a clearing surrounded by dense forest. The criminals have added guard posts and barriers around the perimeter. We'll approach from the south where the tree cover is thickest. Rules of engagement, Carlos asked as he checked his rifle's scope. Jake considered the question carefully. These weren't enemy soldiers or legitimate military targets. They were criminals who had kidnapped his wife. But they were also armed and dangerous people who wouldn't hesitate to kill Maya if they felt threatened. Our priority is getting Maya out alive, Jake said. If we can do that without a firefight, great. But if they threaten her or try to stop us from rescuing her, we use whatever force is necessary. Tony nodded as he attached a silencer to his sniper rifle. Understood. Maya comes first, everything else is secondary. The team left the ship and began moving through the alien forest. The trees were even more massive up close, with trunks wide, enough to hide behind and branches that formed a canopy far overhead. Strange flowers glowed softly in the dim light filtering down from above. The air smelled like cinnamon and electricity. Jake took point while Carlos watched their rear. Liu and Tony moved on the flanks, keeping visual contact through hand signals. They moved silently through the underbrush, years of special operations training allowing them to navigate the alien terrain without making noise. After 2 hours of careful movement, they reached a position overlooking the criminal camp. Jake pulled out his binoculars and studied the scene below. His heart nearly stopped when he saw Maya. She was tied to one of the massive alien trees at the edge of the clearing. Even from a distance, Jake could see that she was alive and alert. Her clothes were dirty and torn, but she didn't appear to be seriously injured. Relief washed over him like a warm wave. Target acquired, Jake whispered into his throat microphone. Maya is alive and conscious. She's restrained but appears uninjured. Carlos moved up beside him and used his own binoculars to scan the camp. I count 14 criminals visible. Guard posts at 4 corners of the clearing. Looks like they've got motion sensors and tripwires around the perimeter. Liu was already working on his electronic warfare equipment. I can disable their motion, sensors, and communication systems. Give me 15 minutes to hack their security network. Tony found a good sniper position with clear lines of sight to multiple targets. I've got eyes on 6 guards from here. If shooting starts, I can take down the perimeter security quickly. Jake watched Maya through his binoculars. She was looking around the camp, studying the guards and their routines. Even as a prisoner, she was gathering intelligence. That was his Maya, always thinking and planning. She hadn't given up hope. One of the criminals walked over to Maya and said something. Jake couldn't hear. Maya looked up at the man and shook her head. The criminal grabbed her chin roughly and spoke again. Maya pulled away from his touch. Jake felt rage building in his chest but forced himself to stay calm and focused. Electronic warfare is complete, Liu reported. Their motion sensors are disabled and their radio communications are jammed. They can't call for backup or coordinate their defense. Sniper positions are locked in, Tony added. I can drop 6 targets in under 10 seconds if needed. Jake studied the layout of the camp one more time. The criminals had made several tactical mistakes. Their guard posts were too far apart. They didn't have overlapping fields of fire, and they were bunched up in small groups that made them vulnerable to coordinated attacks. These weren't professional soldiers. They were thugs who relied on intimidation rather than real combat skills. Assault plan is simple, Jake said quietly. We move in from 4 directions simultaneously. Tony takes out the perimeter guards with his rifle. Carlos and Liu secure the flanks and eliminate any remaining threats. I go straight for Maya and get her clear of the combat zone. What if they try to use Maya as a human shield? Carlos asked. Jake had been thinking about that possibility. If they threaten Maya directly, we switch to precision targeting. No shots unless we have clear targets away from her position. The team synchronized their watches and prepared for the assault. Jake checked his equipment one last time and thought about Maya waiting in the camp below. She had been a prisoner for almost 3 days now. She was probably scared and tired and wondering if help would ever come. Help had arrived. Jake and his brothers were about to show the Crimson Serpents what happened when they threatened the family of Special Operations soldiers. The criminals had picked the wrong woman to kidnap and the wrong fight to start. All units ready, Jake said into his microphone. On my mark, we bring Maya home. Jake lay on his stomach behind a fallen alien tree, watching the criminal camp through his scope. The morning light of Kepler 442b cast long, purple shadows across the clearing. He had been observing for 2 hours now, learning the guards' patterns, and looking for the best moment to strike. Maya was still tied to the massive tree where he had first spotted her. She sat with her back against the purple bark, her hands bound behind her. Jake could see her moving slightly, testing the ropes that held her. Even as a prisoner, she hadn't stopped trying to find a way to escape. A tall man with scars on his face walked out of the largest shelter in the camp. Jake recognized him from the intelligence files as Vincent Cruz, the leader of the Crimson Serpents. Cruz carried himself like a soldier, but Jake could tell from his movements that he was lazy and undisciplined. Former military who had gone bad. Cruz walked over to Maya with a tablet computer in his hands. Jake watched through his scope as the criminal leader knelt down next to his wife. Cruz was speaking, but Jake couldn't hear the words from his hidden position. Maya shook her head at whatever Cruz was asking. Cruz's voice got louder and angrier. Jake could hear pieces of the conversation now. I'm not telling you anything, Maya said clearly. I don't care what you threatened to do to me. Cruz stood up and kicked dirt at Maya's feet. Listen, Lady Doctor. I can make this easy, or I can make this very hard. All I want is information about the valuable stuff on this planet. Mineral deposits, rare plants, anything worth money. Go to hell, Maya replied. Jake felt pride and fear at the same time. Pride because Maya was being brave and refusing to help the criminals. Fear because her defiance might make them hurt her. He forced himself to stay in position and continue gathering intelligence. Rushing in without a plan would only get Maya killed. Cruz grabbed Maya's chin and forced her to look at him. You think your husband is coming to save you? Lady, we're in the middle of nowhere. Nobody even knows where you are. Your precious military husband is probably drinking beer on some space station while you rot out here. Maya looked Cruz straight in the eyes. You don't know my husband. Yeah? What's so special about him? He's the kind of man who keeps his promises. And he promised to always come for me. Cruz laughed, but Jake could tell the criminal was getting frustrated. Well, where is he then? It's been 3 days and I don't see any rescue ships. Jake smiled grimly as he adjusted his scope. Cruz was about to learn exactly where Maya's husband was, but not yet. Jake needed more information about the camps, defenses, and the locations of all the criminals. Another gang member approached Cruz with a radio in his hand. Boss, we've got a problem with communications. The radios aren't working right. What do you mean not working right? Static on all channels. Can't reach the patrol teams or our contacts off-planet. Cruz looked annoyed. Probably another solar storm interfering with the satellites. These frontier planets always have communication problems. Jake smiled. Liu's electronic warfare was working perfectly. The criminals had no idea their communications were being jammed deliberately. They thought it was just bad weather affecting their equipment. Through his scope, Jake watched as Cruz walked back to Maya with the tablet. This time he knelt down and showed her the screen. Jake couldn't see what was displayed, but he could tell, from Maya's reaction, that it wasn't good news. See this? Cruz said. These are satellite images of rare mineral deposits all over this planet. Stuff worth millions of credits on the galactic market. All I need is someone who knows how to extract it safely. I study plant biology, not mineral extraction, Maya said. But you know the planet. You know where the dangerous areas are, where the valuable specimens grow, how to navigate the terrain safely. That knowledge is worth money to me. Maya turned her head away from Cruz. I won't help you destroy this ecosystem. Cruz stood up fast and grabbed Maya's shoulder roughly. You will help me or things are going to get very unpleasant for you. I have ways of making people cooperate. Jake's finger moved to his rifle's trigger. Every instinct told him to put a bullet through Cruz's head right now. But 3 other gang members were standing nearby and any shot would alert the entire camp. Maya could get hurt in the crossfire if Jake acted too quickly. Cruz pulled out a knife and held it close to Maya's face. Maybe I need to give you some motivation to be more helpful. That was enough. Jake was about to signal his team to begin the assault when Maya spoke again. You want to know about this planet? Maya said, her voice steady despite the knife at her throat. Fine. I'll tell you something important. Cruz lowered the knife slightly. Now you're being smart. This planet has apex predators that hunt during the day. Big creatures with claws and teeth that can tear through metal. They're attracted to loud noises and the smell of fear. Jake realized what Maya was doing. She was giving Cruz information that was true but unhelpful. Trying to buy time, and maybe scare the criminals into being more careful. What kind of creatures? Cruz asked. The locals call them shadow hunters. They're invisible until they attack. Your guards won't see them coming. Cruz looked around the camp nervously. How do we protect ourselves? You don't. The only safe time to move around is at night when they sleep. But there are other dangers at night. Poisonous plants that release toxins in the dark. Insects that burrow into exposed skin. Jake could see that Maya's scary stories were having an effect on the gang members. They were looking at the forest around their camp with worried expressions. Maya was using her scientific knowledge to make the criminals paranoid and afraid. But Cruz wasn't completely fooled. You're trying to scare us. If this planet was so dangerous, you wouldn't have been working here alone. I had proper equipment and training. I knew how to protect myself. You're just criminals with stolen weapons camping in the wilderness. Cruz raised his hand like he was going to hit Maya. Jake's finger tightened on his trigger again. But then Cruz stopped and lowered his arm. Save your energy, Lady Doctor. Tomorrow we're moving to a new location where we can start extracting some of those valuable minerals. You're going to guide us there and show us how to do it safely. I already told you I won't help you. Cruz smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. You will help us. Because if you don't, we'll start sending pieces of you to your husband until he comes looking for you. Then we'll kill him too. Jake felt something cold and dark rise up inside his chest. This criminal had just threatened to torture his wife and kill him. The smart tactical move was to wait for a better opportunity to strike. But Jake was discovering that there were some threats that went beyond tactics and strategy. Through his scope, Jake could see Maya's face clearly. She looked tired and scared, but not broken. She was still fighting in her own way, still refusing to give the criminals what they wanted. She believed Jake would come for her. She was counting on him to save her. Jake activated his throat microphone. "All units, this is Jake. Change of plans." Carlos's voice came back immediately. "What's the new plan?" Jake watched Cruz walk away from Maya, probably going to plan their move to a new location. The criminal leader had no idea that his time was almost up. He had made the mistake of threatening Jake's family. That was something Jake could not and would not tolerate. "We're not waiting for nightfall," Jake said quietly. "We're going in now." "Jake, the tactical situation hasn't changed," Tony's voice replied. "Still too many targets in the open." "The situation has changed. They just threatened to torture Maya and kill me. That changes everything." Jake could feel his teammates considering this new information. They all understood that some lines could not be crossed. Threatening family was one of those lines. "Roger that," Carlos said. "New rules of engagement?" Jake looked through his scope at Vincent Cruz, who was now talking to his men about moving locations. The criminal had sealed his fate when he threatened Maya. Jake's protective instincts were fully activated now. This wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. It was personal. "Rules of engagement are simple," Jake said into his microphone. "Anyone who threatens Maya Johnson dies today." Lou's voice came over the radio with quiet determination. "Copy that. Electronic warfare systems are ready." Tony adjusted his sniper rifle. "Sniper positions locked. I have clear shots on 6 targets." Carlos checked his assault rifle. "Ready to move on your command." Jake took one last look at Maya through his scope. She was looking toward the forest, almost like she knew help was nearby. Jake had promised to always come for her. He had promised to protect her from anyone who tried to hurt her. It was time to keep those promises. "All units stand," Jake said. "We're bringing Maya home." Jake checked his watch and activated his throat microphone. "All units execute in 60 seconds. Tony, you have the first shots. Take down the perimeter guards cleanly." "Copy that." Tony's voice came back calm and professional. 6 targets, identified. Engaging in 60 seconds. Jake moved quietly through the alien underbrush toward his assigned position. His years of special operations training took over as he became focused and deadly. Every movement was calculated to bring him closer to Maya, while staying invisible to the gang members. Carlos and Liu were moving to their flanking positions on either side of the camp. Jake could see them occasionally through the trees, ghostly, figures in combat armor slipping between the massive purple tree trunks. The Crimson Serpents had no idea that death was closing in around their camp. 30 seconds, Jake whispered into his microphone. Through his scope, Jake could see Maya, still tied to the alien tree. She was looking toward the forest again, like she sensed something was about to happen. Her scientific mind probably recognized that the normal sounds of the alien wildlife had gone quiet. Animals always knew when predators were nearby. Vincent Cruz was standing near the center of the camp talking to 3 of his men. They were pointing at maps and discussing their planned move to a new location. Cruz kept gesturing toward Maya, probably explaining how they would force her to guide them to valuable mineral deposits. 10 seconds, Jake said. Tony's sniper rifle was aimed at the guard tower on the north side of the camp. The criminal up there was smoking something and not paying attention to his surroundings. He had no idea that crosshairs were centered on his chest. "Execute," Jake commanded. Tony's rifle made a soft coughing sound as the silenced bullet left the barrel. The guard in the north tower dropped without making a noise. Tony immediately shifted to his second target, a gang member patrolling the east side of the camp. Another quiet shot and another criminal went down. Jake started moving toward Maya's position while Tony continued eliminating perimeter guards. The criminals in the center of the camp hadn't noticed anything yet. Tony was shooting from long range, with perfect accuracy. dropping targets so quickly and quietly that the gang didn't realize they were under attack. Perimeter is clear, Tony reported after his sixth shot. No more guards on the outside. Moving to phase 2, Jake replied. Carlos appeared at the west edge of the clearing and began moving toward the gang's equipment shelters. His job was to secure any weapons or communications gear the criminals might try to use. Liu emerged from the south and started heading toward Cruz and his leadership group. Jake was now only 50 meters from Maya's position. He could see her clearly without using his scope. She was watching the forest intently like she knew something was happening, but couldn't see what it was. Jake wanted to signal her somehow, but he couldn't risk giving away his position. One of the gang members finally noticed that something was wrong. Hey, where's Bobby? He was supposed to be watching the north side. Another criminal looked around the camp. I don't see Martinez either, or Johnson. Vincent Cruz stopped looking at his maps and started scanning the tree line around the camp. Something's not right. Get on the radio and check with all patrol teams. The gang member with the radio tried several times to make contact. Boss, the radios still aren't working. Nothing but static on all channels. Cruz's face went from annoyed to worried. That's not solar interference. Someone's jamming our communications. Jake smiled grimly as he continued moving closer to Maya. Cruz was finally starting to understand that his gang was in serious trouble, but the criminal leader's realization had come too late to save his men. We're under attack, Cruz shouted to his remaining gang members. Defensive positions now. The criminals started running toward cover, but they had no idea where the threat was coming from. Some headed toward the tree line where Jake was hiding. Others ran toward the equipment shelters where Carlos was waiting. A few tried to reach the guard towers where Tony had already eliminated their teammates. Carlos opened fire first. His assault rifle chattered as he engaged 3 gang members who were running toward a weapons cache. The criminals went down before they could reach their heavy guns. Carlos immediately shifted position and disappeared back into the forest. Liu appeared behind Cruz's leadership group like a ghost materializing from thin air. His rifle barked twice and 2 more gang members dropped. Cruz spun around looking for the source of the shots, but Liu had already vanished back into the trees. Where are they? Cruz screamed. How many attackers are there? Jake was now only 20 meters from Maya. He could see that she had figured out what was happening. Her eyes were bright with hope and determination. She was getting ready to move as soon as Jake cut her free from the ropes. 2 gang members ran past Jake's hiding position without seeing him. They were panicked and shooting randomly into the forest. Jake let them pass and continued moving toward Maya. His priority was getting his wife to safety, not engaging every criminal in the camp. Cruz grabbed the gang member closest to him. Rico, take 2 men and secure the prisoner. If we're going to die here, we're taking her with us. Rico and 2 other criminals started running toward Maya's position. Jake realized they were going to use his wife as a human shield or kill her out of spite. He couldn't let them reach her. Jake stepped out from behind a tree and opened fire. His assault rifle was set to 3-round burst mode for maximum accuracy. The first burst caught Rico in the chest and dropped him immediately. The second burst took down the criminal to Rico's left. The third man tried to dive for cover, but Jake's next burst found him before he could reach safety. Maya, stay down, Jake shouted as he ran toward his wife's position. Maya pressed herself against the alien tree as Jake reached her. His hands found the ropes binding her wrists and he cut through them with his combat knife. She was free in seconds. I knew you'd come, Maya said as Jake pulled her behind the massive tree trunk for cover. Are you hurt? Jake asked while scanning the area for more threats. Just tired and scared, but I'm okay now. Jake handed Maya a backup pistol from his gear. Stay behind this tree until I tell you it's safe to move. Can you still shoot? Maya checked the weapon and nodded. Just like you taught me. Cruz's voice echoed across the clearing. Whoever you are, we have your scientist lady. Back off or we kill her. Jake almost laughed. Cruz still thought his men had Maya as a hostage. The criminal leader had no idea that his wife was already free and armed. Jake activated his throat microphone. Carlos Liu, report your status. West side is clear, Carlos replied. 4 targets down, no more resistance on this flank. South and east are secure, Liu added. 3 targets eliminated. Equipment shelters are under our control. Jake counted the casualties in his head. Tony had dropped 6 guards on the perimeter. Carlos had eliminated 4 more. Liu had killed 3. Jake had taken down 3 who were threatening Maya. That was 16 gang members down. Intelligence estimates suggested the total gang size was between 15 and 30 people. There couldn't be many criminals left alive. "Cruz," Jake called, out across the clearing. "This is Master Sergeant Jake Washington, Terran Defense Force. You're surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now and you might live through this." "Washington?" Cruz shouted back. "You're the scientist's husband?" "That's right. And you made the mistake of kidnapping my wife." There was a long pause before Cruz replied. "How did you find us so fast? We're in the middle of nowhere." Jake stepped partially out from behind the tree, keeping Maya safely behind cover. He could see Cruz and about 6 remaining gang members clustered near their main shelter. They looked scared and desperate. "My wife is a smart woman, Cruz. She managed to send me your location before you could stop her. Then she survived 3 days as your prisoner while I gathered my team and came looking for you." "Your team? How many soldiers are there?" Jake smiled coldly. "Enough to kill everyone in your gang if you don't surrender right now." Cruz was looking around frantically, probably trying to figure out how many attackers he was facing. The smart thing for the criminal leader to do would be to give up. His gang was broken, his communications were jammed, and his perimeter guards were all dead. But Cruz had made his career making bad decisions. "I've still got 6 men and plenty of ammunition," Cruz yelled. "We can hold out until reinforcements arrive." "What reinforcements?" Jake called back. "Your communications are jammed and your off-planet contacts can't reach you. It's just you and my team on this planet, and my team is very good at their job." Jake could see Cruz talking urgently with his remaining men. The criminals were arguing about something, probably whether to fight or surrender. Jake hoped they would make the smart choice, but he was prepared for either option. "Maya," Jake said quietly, "when I give the signal, I want you to run toward that fallen log about 30 meters behind us. Carlos will be waiting there to escort you to our ship." "What about you?" "I'm going to finish this conversation with Cruz. Don't worry, I'll be right." "Behind you." Jake activated his microphone again. "Carlos, prepare to escort Maya to the extraction point. Lou and Tony, be ready for final assault if they choose to fight." "Copy that," came the replies from his teammates. Jake stepped fully into the clearing with his rifle ready. Vincent Cruz and his 6 remaining gang members had taken cover behind their equipment shelters, but Jake could see them clearly. They looked desperate and scared, like cornered animals, who knew they were about to die. "Last chance, Cruz," Jake called out. "Throw down your weapons and surrender. My wife is safe now, which means you have nothing left to bargain with." Cruz popped up from behind a metal crate and fired several wild shots in Jake's direction. The bullets went wide, hitting trees and dirt nowhere near their target. Jake didn't even flinch. The criminal's shooting was sloppy and panicked, nothing like the disciplined marksmanship of trained soldiers. "I'm not going to prison," Cruz shouted. "We fight our way out or die trying." Jake sighed and activated his throat microphone. "Maya, execute extraction now. Run to Carlos." Behind him, Jake heard Maya moving quickly toward the fallen log where Carlos was waiting. Jake kept his attention focused on Cruz's position while his wife reached safety. Once Carlos confirmed that Maya was secure, Jake could stop worrying about protecting her and focus entirely on ending this fight. "Package is secure," Carlos reported over the radio. "Maya is safe and moving to the ship." Relief flooded through Jake's body. Maya was out of danger. Now he could deal with Cruz and his gang without holding back. The criminals had threatened his wife, kidnapped her, and terrorized her for 3 days. It was time for them to face the consequences of their actions. "Tony, do you have clear shots on any targets?" Jake asked into his microphone. "Negative. They're using the equipment shelters for cover. Too much metal between me and them." "Liu, can you flank them from the east?" "Already, in position. Give me 30 seconds to get closer." Jake started moving toward Cruz's position while Liu maneuvered around the gang's flank. The criminals were focused on Jake's obvious approach, and didn't notice Liu's stealthy movement through the trees. It was a classic special operations tactic that had worked countless times in combat zones across the galaxy. One of Cruz's men spotted Jake advancing and opened fire with an automatic rifle. The shots were more accurate this time, forcing Jake to dive behind a large boulder for cover. Bullets sparked off the alien rock, filling the air with purple dust and the smell of burned stone. "You killed most of my gang," Cruz yelled from his shelter. "I'm going to make you pay for that." Jake smiled grimly as he reloaded his rifle. "Your gang kidnapped an innocent scientist and threatened to torture her. You brought this on yourselves. She was just business, nothing personal." "Everything about this is personal," Jake replied. "You made it personal when you touched my wife." Liu's voice came over the radio. "In position, 3 targets visible from my angle." "Engage when ready," Jake replied. Liu's rifle began firing in controlled bursts. Jake heard screams and curses from the gang's position as Liu's bullets found their targets. 2 more criminals went down before they realized they were being attacked from a new direction. "We're being flanked," one of the surviving gang members shouted. "They're everywhere." Cruz was starting to understand that his situation was hopeless. His gang was down to 4 men, including himself. They were surrounded by professional soldiers who had superior training, better equipment, and tactical advantages. The smart thing would be to surrender immediately. But criminals like Cruz didn't get to leadership positions by making smart decisions. They got there by being more ruthless and violent than everyone around them. Cruz chose to fight even when fighting meant certain death. "If we're going down, we're taking some of them with us," Cruz screamed to his remaining men. "Spread out and make them work for it." The 4 surviving criminals left their cover and began moving in different directions. It was actually a decent tactical decision that forced Jake's team to split their attention between multiple targets. But it was too little too late against opponents of Jake's caliber. Tony's sniper rifle began speaking from the tree line. His first shot dropped a gang member who was trying to reach a heavy machine gun mounted near the camp's communication equipment. Tony's second shot took down another criminal who was attempting to flank Jake's position. That left only Cruz and 1 other gang member still alive. Jake could see them both clearly now as they abandoned their cover and tried to rush his position. They were firing wildly as they ran, hoping to get lucky and hit something important. Jake rose from behind his boulder and took careful aim. His first 3-round burst caught the unknown gang member center mass and dropped him immediately. His second burst was aimed at Cruz, but the gang leader threw himself sideways and rolled behind another piece of equipment. "You can't hide forever, Cruz," Jake called out as he advanced. "Your gang is finished and you're all alone." "Maybe, but I'm taking you with me," Cruz yelled back. Jake heard the distinctive sound of a grenade pin being pulled. Cruz was going to try a suicide attack with explosives. Jake immediately dove for cover behind the nearest solid object, as Cruz came running out from his hiding spot with a live grenade in his hand. Liu's rifle cracked once from the forest. Cruz stumbled, and the grenade fell from his hand as Liu's bullet found its target. The explosive device hit the ground and rolled several feet away from Cruz before detonating. The explosion was loud but small, doing no damage to anything except Cruz's equipment shelters. Jake stood up and walked over to where Cruz was lying on the ground. The gang leader was still alive but badly wounded. Liu's shot had been precise enough to stop Cruz without killing him immediately. Professional marksmanship at its finest. Cruz looked up at Jake with hatred and pain in his eyes. "You think you won something here? There are dozens of gangs like mine operating in frontier space. You can't save everyone." Jake knelt down beside the dying criminal. "I don't have to save everyone. I only had to save Maya, and I did. She's just one woman, one scientist on one planet. There are thousands of people being held prisoner by gangs like mine." "You're probably right," Jake said calmly. "But Maya isn't just anyone. She's my wife, she's family, and nobody threatens my family and lives to tell about it." Cruz tried to say something else, but his strength was fading fast. Liu's bullet had done exactly what it was supposed to do. Within minutes, Vincent Cruz was dead and the Crimson Serpent gang was finished forever. Jake stood up and activated his throat microphone. "All units, sound off. Area is secure. Carlos here. Maya is safe at the ship. No injuries, just tired and shaken up. Liu reporting. East flank is clear. No surviving targets in my sector. Tony checking in. Perimeter is secure. Total enemy. Casualties are 21 confirmed. Jake looked around the destroyed camp. Bodies of dead criminals lay scattered among the ruined equipment. The gang's weapons and supplies were destroyed or captured. Their communication gear was smashed beyond repair. The Crimson Serpents would never threaten anyone again. Outstanding work, everyone, Jake said. Let's collect any useful intelligence and get off this planet. Jake spent the next hour searching through the gang's equipment and documents. He found maps showing other criminal operations, lists of potential targets, and communication logs that would be valuable to military intelligence. The information might help law enforcement agencies shut down other gangs operating in frontier space. Tony and Liu gathered the gang's weapons while Carlo stayed with Maya at the ship. Jake wanted to make sure no useful equipment fell into the hands of other criminals who might come looking for Cruz's gang later. As Jake worked, he thought about what Cruz had said before dying. The criminal leader was right that there were many other gangs operating in frontier space. Thousands of innocent people were probably being held prisoner or threatened by criminals right now. But Jake wasn't a one-man crusade against frontier crime. He was a soldier with specific duties and responsibilities. His mission had been to rescue his wife and eliminate the immediate threat to her safety. That mission was complete. Maya was safe. The gang that had kidnapped her was destroyed. Justice had been served. Jake felt satisfied that he had kept his promises to protect his wife and punish anyone who threatened her. As the twin suns of Kepler 442b began to set, Jake gathered his team and prepared to leave the planet. Maya was waiting for him at their ship, probably eager to get back to civilization and continue her important research work. Jake took one last look at the destroyed criminal camp. 21 gang members had died today because they made the mistake of threatening Maya Johnson. Other criminals in frontier space would hear about what happened here. They would learn that some people were too dangerous to target. Threatening the family of Delta Force operators was a fatal mistake. Jake hoped the message would spread far enough to prevent other gangs from making the same error in judgment. All units, return to ship, Jake commanded. We're going home. Jake walked through the alien forest toward their hidden ship as the purple sky darkened overhead. Behind him, the destroyed criminal camp burned quietly in the gathering dusk. Smoke rose from the ruined equipment shelters where the Crimson Serpent gang had made their final stand. It was finished. Carlos met Jake at the edge of the forest clearing where their courier ship waited. Maya's inside getting cleaned up and eating some real food. She's tired but in good spirits. Keeps asking about you. Jake felt the tension leave his shoulders for the first time in days. Maya was safe. The mission was complete. His team had performed flawlessly, and everyone was going home alive. Any word from Terran Command? Liu monitored military communication channels while you were finishing up with Cruz. No alerts about our unauthorized mission yet. If we're lucky, nobody will notice we were gone until after we get back. Jake nodded as they approached the ship. Through the windows, he could see Maya sitting at the small table in the main cabin. She had changed into clean clothes from their emergency supplies and was eating a military ration pack. Even tired and disheveled, she was the most beautiful sight Jake had ever seen. Tony and Liu were already aboard, securing their equipment and preparing the ship for departure. They moved efficiently through their post-mission routines, checking weapons, inventorying supplies, and making sure no evidence of their presence remained on the planet. Jake climbed aboard and immediately went to Maya. She stood up and threw her arms around him, holding him tight enough that he could barely breathe. Jake hugged her back and felt 3 days of worry and fear finally drain away. I knew you'd come, Maya whispered against his chest. Even when things looked hopeless, I knew you'd find a way. I told you I'd always come for you, Jake replied. That's a promise I'll never break. Maya pulled back and looked at his face. Are you hurt? I heard a lot of gunfire. I'm fine, we're all fine. The gang won't be bothering anyone ever again. Maya nodded soberly. She was a peaceful scientist who didn't like violence, but she understood that sometimes dangerous people left no choice except to fight back. The Crimson Serpents had chosen their own fate when they decided to kidnap and threaten innocent people. Carlos started the ship's engines while Tony plotted their course back to Terran space. Liu was already working on erasing their electronic tracks and making sure their unauthorized mission couldn't be traced by military investigators. The team worked together like they had during countless operations in their Special Forces days. The ship lifted off from Kepler 442b. Jake sat beside Maya and held her hand. Through the window, they watched the alien planet fall away beneath them. Soon they were in space, heading toward the faster-than-light jump point that would take them home. "What happens now?" Maya asked quietly. "Will you get in trouble for coming after me?" Jake had been thinking about that question during the flight back from the destroyed camp. Probably. Unauthorized missions violate about a dozen military regulations. But Carlos was right when he said your family. Some things are more important than regulations. Maya squeezed his hand. "I don't want you to ruin your career because of me. My career means nothing if I don't have you to share it with. Besides, the intelligence we gathered from Cruz's gang might be valuable enough to earn us some forgiveness from command." Tony called back from the pilot station. "Jumping to faster than light in 60 seconds. Everyone strap in." Jake and Maya secured themselves in their seats as the ship prepared to enter hyperspace. The journey back to Europa would take 2 days, giving them time to decompress from the mission and figure out how to handle the official response to their unauthorized rescue operation. The ship jumped to faster than light with a sensation like falling forward into bright light. Jake felt his stomach settle as they entered the strange non-space of hyperspace travel. They were heading home at last. During the 2-day journey, Maya told Jake about her 3 days as a prisoner. She described how Cruz had tried to force her to help locate valuable resources on the planet. She explained how she had used her scientific knowledge to confuse and frighten the gang members with stories about dangerous alien creatures. "I kept thinking about our survival training," Maya said. "How you taught me to stay calm under pressure and look for opportunities to escape or send signals for help." "You did everything right," Jake replied. "Getting that distress message to me was brilliant. Without those coordinates, we never would have found you in time." Jake also told Maya about gathering his team and planning the rescue mission. He described how Carlos, Liu, and Tony had dropped everything to help save her without asking any questions. Maya smiled when she heard about Tony calling her Cookie Lady and insisting that anyone who threatened cookies had to be stopped. "Oh, all of them so much," Maya said. "They risked their careers and their lives to help a scientist they barely know." "You're not just any scientist," Jake replied. "You're family, and we take care of family." 2 days later, their ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Europa system. Jake could see the familiar blue and white planet where his military base was located. It felt good to be back in Terran space after their dangerous mission to the frontier. As they approached Europa Station, Liu intercepted a priority military communication addressed to Jake. "Boss, you've got orders to report to General Morrison immediately upon return." No mention of Maya or the mission. Jake wasn't surprised. Military intelligence probably noticed his absence and started asking questions when he couldn't be located. Through normal channels. The smart thing would be to prepare a careful explanation that minimized his team's violation of regulations. But Jake had decided during the journey home that he wasn't going to lie or make excuses. He had done what needed to be done to save his wife. If Terran Command wanted to court-martial him for that, so be it. The ship docked at Europa Station, and the team gathered their personal gear. Carlos, Liu, and Tony would report to their own commanding officers and face whatever consequences came from their unauthorized absence. They had already discussed their stories and agreed to tell the truth about why they had left their assignments. "Whatever happens, I'm proud to have served with all of you," Jake said as they prepared to leave the ship. "This was the most important mission we ever completed." Carlos smiled. "Maya, if you ever need anything, you call us. We'll always be there for family." Liu nodded his agreement. "Take care of yourself, Maya, and keep Jake out of trouble." Tony grinned. "Don't forget to keep making those cookies. The galaxy is safer when Maya Johnson is happy." Maya hugged each of the men who had risked everything to save her. Jake felt proud watching his wife thank his brothers in arms. These were good men who understood what really mattered in life. Jake and Maya took a transport shuttle to the main military base on Europa. During the short flight, Jake thought about what he would tell General Morrison. The truth was simple. Criminals had kidnapped his wife, and he had assembled a team to rescue her. They had eliminated a dangerous gang and recovered valuable intelligence. Mission accomplished. At the base, Jake walked Maya to their quarters and kissed her goodbye. "I'll be back as soon as I finish my meeting with the general." "I'll be here waiting," Maya replied. "Good luck." Jake reported to General Morrison's office exactly 2 hours after docking at Europa Station. The general was a tough older woman who had commanded respect throughout the Terran military for 30 years. She looked up from her desk when Jake entered and gestured for him to sit down. "Master Sergeant Washington," General Morrison said, "you've been on quite an adventure." "Yes, ma'am. My wife was kidnapped by criminals and I took action to rescue her. Without authorization, using stolen military equipment, with a team of soldiers who abandoned their assigned duties." Jake met the general's eyes steadily. "Yes, ma'am. I accept full responsibility for those decisions." General Morrison was quiet for a long moment. Then she opened a file on her desk and pulled out several documents. "The intelligence package you recovered from the Crimson Serpent gang has been very interesting reading. Maps of criminal operations throughout frontier space, communication logs with other gangs, financial records showing connections to corrupt corporate executives." Jake remained silent and waited for the general to continue. "This information is allowing us to plan coordinated strikes against multiple criminal organizations. We estimate that your unauthorized mission will result in the capture or elimination of over 200 criminals operating in 5 different star systems. I'm glad the intelligence proved useful, ma'am." General Morrison smiled slightly. "Useful is an understatement, Sergeant. This is the biggest breakthrough in frontier law enforcement in years, which puts me in an interesting position regarding your court-martial." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am? It's hard to punish soldiers for a mission that saves hundreds of lives and strikes a major blow against organized crime, especially when that mission was motivated by loyalty to family rather than personal gain." General Morrison closed the file and leaned back in her chair. "Here's what's going to happen, Sergeant. You and your team are going to receive official commendations for your service to the Terran Defense Force. The unauthorized nature of your mission will be classified and removed from official records.